Hello, my name is Mika Burdette, and I'm a program manager at the Colorado Energy Office, and I oversee the Charge Ahead program. Today, I'll guide you through the EV charging station accessibility guidance to ensure your project complies with our accessibility requirements. All Charge Ahead projects are required to incorporate accessible design standards into the awarded EV charging projects, as detailed by the U.S. Access Board and the Charge Ahead application guide. Guidance related to accessible design for EV charging is also summarized in the CEO EV charging station accessibility guidance document and the accessible design checklist. Accessible EV chargers allow for the independent use of the chargers by drivers or passengers with disabilities and enable physical access for people who use mobility devices such as wheelchairs, scooters, or walkers. Please watch the video included in the slides to help illustrate the importance of EV charging accessibility as a wheelchair user. Also, please check out the link from the CDC that overviews that over 7 million adults in the US have a disability. Please note projects that do not incorporate accessible design may forfeit the grant award until this requirement is completed. Additionally, per state law in House Bill 241161, Motor Vehicle Access Individual with Disabilities, all EV charging stations installed or placed in Colorado on or after January 1st, 2006 are required to incorporate the U.S. Access Board accessibility design standards, whether or not the project receives Charge Ahead Colorado grant funding. If it is not possible to incorporate the required accessible design standards into your projects, please contact me at Mika, M-I-K-A, period, Burdette, at state dot US before beginning the awarded projects. Accessible design requirements. 5% of all charging ports, but no less than one charging port at each awarded site must incorporate accessible design standards. These standards must be incorporated into the space serving the highest power output charging ports at each awarded site. A drive site design, drawing, or thorough description of how accessible design standards will be incorporated into the award projects must be provided by me, Mika Burdette, before starting construction. Accessible design specification. A charging space must be at least 11 feet wide and 20 feet long, where feasible, with an adjacent at least 5-foot wide striped access aisle. Most standard parking stalls are about 9 feet wide. The best practice is to place the access aisle in the center of 3 parking stalls, resulting in 2 accessible spaces. To review more detailed requirements for the incorporation of accessible design, please visit the U.S. Access Board website. In Image 1, the accessible EV charging parking shows 2 11-foot wide charging stalls with a 5-foot striped access aisle leading into an access route in between the 2 parking spaces. In Image 2, there's an overview of an accessible charging stall illustrating the required accessible design standards with a parking space that is 11 feet wide and 20 feet long and has an adjacent 5-foot striped access aisle leading to an accessible route on the right. In Image 3, an overhead view of 2 accessible 11-foot wide charging stalls with a 5-foot striped access aisle is leading to an accessible route between them. A person in a wheelchair is using the accessible route, an access aisle to plug in an electric vehicle to charge. Accessible design, additional important considerations. The accessible chargers and charging space must be designed to be accessible and to show and be labeled as accessible EV charging. Use last. The accessible chargers should not be located in a space reserved for ADA parking only. The chargers must be located on an accessible route leading to an accessible entrance of the building or facility. The chargers must provide clear floor or ground space at the same level as the charging space, and accessible operatable parts of the chargers should be an unobstructable accessible reach and be no higher than 48 inches. If the charger is installed on a curb, place it as close to the edge as possible and no further than 10 inches away. These mobility features allow for sufficient space for a person who uses a mobility device to exit and to maneuver around all sides of the EV, retrieve the EV connector, and plug the connector into the EV charging inlet on the vehicle. Image 1 is a sign that says accessible EV charging, use last. Image 2 is a person in a wheelchair using an accessible electric vehicle charger, which requires that all operable parts of the charger be at least 15 inches off the ground and no higher than 48 inches off the ground. Image 3 is an overhead view of a parking lot with 2 accessible charging spaces on the left side of the image. A 5-foot access aisle between the 2 accessible spaces lead to an accessible route and entrance to the facility. The accessible charging spaces are for EV charging only and do not replace existing non-charging accessible parking spaces. On the left is an example of an accessible design implemented correctly. A clearly marked 5-foot access aisle between the 2 EV charging space. There is a parking space reserved for EV parking only, not ADA only parking. An accessible curb to the access aisle is present for easy access. On the right is an example of an accessible design implemented incorrectly. Avoid these common mistakes. Installing a charging port in an ADA-only parking space, which limits usage to people with disabilities and can be misused by gas vehicles. This space also has the international symbol of accessibility, which should not be included, as the charger should be available to all EV drivers and accessible to drivers of all abilities. This also implements the accessible design incorrectly by failing to include any accessible design features. Thank you for your attention to these important guidelines and for your commitment to making EV charging accessible for all.